I started feeling like I was slowly abandoning myself. Not the kind of tired you get after a long day or stress from work. This was exhaustion, like someone was draining the life out of me bit by bit every single day. My name is Catherine. I'm 36 years old and I live in Portland, Oregon. I used to be full of energy. Working in financial analysis, sharp-minded, quick to respond, always in control of my pace. But now everything felt blurry, like my brain had been wrapped in thick fog. Day by day, I was becoming more absent-minded, dropping my wallet at the checkout counter, forgetting both my email password and client meetings. One morning, I got to the office and couldn't remember which route I took to drive there. This wasn't regular fatigue anymore. And my body. Every morning I woke up feeling like I'd been in an accident. My muscles ached, my head throbbed. And the dreams, more like nightmares. Every night I dreamed I was trapped in a sealed room, someone staring through a slit in the door, whispering something in a voice I couldn't make out. But it chilled me to the bone. The strangest part? It all started about 3 months ago. Right around the time my husband Brandon began making me tea every night. "You need proper sleep, Kat," he would say, placing a steaming mug into my hands, his voice sweet and eyes full of concern. "Working like that, you'll get sick sooner or later." I used to find that gesture endearing. He's 6 years older than me, works in real estate investment. Calm, composed, the kind of man I thought I could lean on after years of doing everything alone. But now, I'm not so sure. Because every time I drank the tea Brandon made, within 10 minutes my eyelids would get heavy and my head would spin. It wasn't just drowsiness. It felt like a direct hit to my nervous system, pulling me under without control. What unsettled me the most was, I never knew exactly what kind of tea it was. I asked and he'd just smile and say, "A special herbal blend I got from a little shop near work." No labels. I never saw him prepare it, always after I finished showering or was busy with something else. I began paying closer attention. When I pretended to sip slowly, he'd glance at me more often, as if watching for a reaction. One night, I caught a strange sharp scent beneath the usual mint and chamomile. Subtle, but enough to send a chill through me. His sweetness also started to crack. Brandon grew more irritable. One day, I left my coat on the couch and he threw it to the floor, growling, "Always a mess." When I asked why he was acting like that, he blamed work stress, then hugged me like nothing happened. But I couldn't trust those hugs anymore. That unease began to fill every gap in my day. I kept trying to find rational explanations, stress, lack of sleep, weather, but the more I tried, the louder the fear grew. And beneath all the doubt, one question screamed in my head every time I looked at that evening cup of tea. What would happen if I stopped drinking it? I couldn't take it anymore. That morning, after waking up with aching eyes, a mouth dry as paper, and a strange bruise on my upper arm, I decided to call Monica, my best friend from college, now a pharmacist at a major drugstore in Beaverton. "Are you free tonight?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady while calling from the office landline. "I need to talk, it's urgent." Monica was silent for just a second before answering. 8 o'clock, my place. "And Kat? Bring anything related to what you've been drinking." That night, I arrived at Monica's apartment sluggish, but trying to appear alert. Her place was just like the last time I visited. Tidy, cozy, full of medical books and little potted plants on the windowsills. The scent of mint from her diffuser softly drifted past my nose, a stark contrast to the smell that haunted my sleep every night. "Sit down," Monica said, placing 2 cups of chamomile tea in front of us. "Tell me everything." I hadn't meant to cry, but the moment my lips touched the tea not made by Brandon, tears came pouring out. I told her everything: the overwhelming fatigue, the recurring nightmares, the foggy memory and confusion with no reason. I described the tea Brandon gave me every night, the strange sharp smell, the way his eyes hardened when I asked about what was in it. Monica didn't interrupt, but her face grew darker as I spoke. When I mentioned catching a faint chemical scent in the tea, she set her cup down and said, without sugarcoating, Catherine, it sounds like you might be ingesting a mild sedative or sleep-inducing drug. There are water-soluble substances, no color, no strong smell, that when used repeatedly can disrupt sleep, memory, even behavior. I stared at Monica. You mean Brandon's drugging me? She said only one sentence and it sent ice through my veins. You need to test it, but don't let him find out. We sat in silence for a few seconds, just the ticking of the clock. Monica pulled a basic water testing kit from her drawer and gave me one critical piece of advice. First, stop drinking it, but make sure he thinks you still are. Pretend. Pour it out when he's not looking, record any strange behavior, his words, reactions, expressions, and if possible, save a sample for me to test. I left Monica's house feeling like I'd just signed a contract with myself. I wasn't a suspicious wife anymore. I was someone investigating the man sleeping beside her. The next night, Brandon handed me the usual cup. It's cold tonight, he said, gently brushing my hair. Ginger tea will help you sleep. I held the smile just long enough, then drifted toward the living room window, where a wilting orchid waited, its petals curled like they too were keeping secrets. While he turned toward the kitchen, I tilted the cup. The pale tea soaked into the soil, a few drops hit the leaf, making it tremble. I stared at it for a few seconds, my palm ice cold. Back on the couch, I lifted the empty cup to my lips, closed my eyes as if savoring it. Tonight's tea smells different, he said casually, glancing quickly at him. Did you use a new blend? Brandon paused. Not much, just a blink, slightly longer than usual. Oh, I added a bit of honey ginger, he replied, then gave a faint smile. Do you like it? I forced a smile. Yeah, it's fine. That night, I pretended to fall asleep as soon as the lights were off. My back to the wall, hand resting lightly on the blanket, breathing steady, just like every other night. But this time, I didn't sleep. I waited. Only the ticking clock and faint footsteps in the hallway broke the silence. I lay still in bed, eyes shut tight, my breath calm like someone deep in sleep. In the darkness, every sense felt painfully amplified. Every creak of the wooden floor, every soft sound in the apartment made my heart stop. Brendan didn't come into the bedroom right away. I heard the clink of a glass, the water running in the sink. Then nothing. Almost 10 minutes passed in a suffocating silence. I started to worry maybe he'd figured it out. Then, a soft click. Not the bedroom door, the office door. My heart pounded as I heard his quiet steps inside, the scrape of a chair, the tapping on a keyboard. After a few minutes I got up, easing my feet onto the floor one at a time, like crossing a minefield. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't breathe too loudly. Every step could change what I was about to find. I reached the hallway. The office door was slightly ajar. Through the gap I saw Brandon's back, illuminated by the cold blue light of a laptop screen. My laptop. He was in my personal email. I opened my mouth but no sound came out. My hand gripped the wall, icy cold. He wasn't just snooping, he had a black USB drive plugged into the side port. The screen showed folders, bank, lease agreements, investment plans, tax info. He was copying everything. I watched him open the personal docs folder. Inside were scans of my passport, social security card, and a copy of the home deed under my name. Each click from Brandon felt like a knife to my chest. And it didn't stop there. He opened a new browser tab and tried logging in to my online bank account using an old password I'd changed weeks ago. When the system flagged it as incorrect, he frowned and searched my archived emails for a reset link. I was frozen. Then he opened a PDF. It was an online loan application under my name. The amount: $75,000. Reason: real estate expansion investment in Austin. Attached were bank statements, a copy of my ID, and collateral listed as the current apartment, fully owned by me. I gripped the doorframe, nails digging into my skin. This wasn't impulsive, this was a plan. Deliberate, timed, calculated. Brandon was stealing my identity. After downloading the entire set of documents, he printed some of them. I heard the low hum of the printer in the corner. Then he pulled out a brown leather briefcase from the drawer, opened it, and carefully placed each document inside, like he was prepping for a client meeting. Just then, Brandon turned his head. I instantly stepped back, pressing myself against the wall. The hallway motion sensor light didn't turn on. It seemed he didn't notice. A minute later, he shut the office door, turned off the lights, and walked toward the living room. I darted back to bed like a ghost, pulled the blanket over me, eyes shut, breath held. His scent lingered on my shirt as he leaned close to my face. "Sleep tight, sweetheart," he whispered. "Just a few more steps." I nearly broke down. When I heard soft snoring from the living room, Brandon's habit was to sleep on the couch whenever I was too tired. I opened my eyes. The panic was still there, but now it was drowned by a seething rage. Brandon wasn't just poisoning me physically. He was erasing me from my own life. Quietly, methodically, with intent. Every cup of tea, every fake smile, every gentle word was a smokescreen for a monstrous plan. I had to get out. The next morning, I left the apartment before Brandon woke up. No note, no slammed door, just the quiet sound of shoes on the hallway floor. Each one shedding another layer of a love that had long turned hollow. But now there was no room for doubt. I was living with a betrayer, and if I waited any longer, I'd lose everything. I drove straight to the pharmacy where Monica worked. She had just clocked in when she saw me waiting on the sidewalk. My face pale, eyes bloodshot from no sleep. She didn't ask questions. She responded with a slight motion. "Come home with me, now." At her small apartment in Hillsborough, I collapsed at the kitchen table, hands still trembling from chaos. Monica gripped my shoulder. "We're not letting him go any further." 2 hours later, I was at the office of attorney Elliot Sanders, a friend of Monica's who had helped her in a pharmaceutical trademark dispute. His office was on the 8th floor of a glass tower in downtown Portland. The waiting area was minimal and elegant, but I wasn't thinking about aesthetics. All I could feel was the fear of being wiped out, losing everything I'd built. "Ms. Stone, please have a seat," Elliot said, shaking my hand. His voice was deep, firm. Monica filled me in briefly. "Do you have your ID, bank info with you?" I placed everything I had on the table. My passport, the home ownership document under my name, and a copy of my personal credit agreement. Elliot reviewed each page carefully, then began outlining the plan. "The first step," he said. "We need to freeze everything, checking, credit cards, savings." "I'll make the call right now." I immediately handed him my phone. My hands were still trembling. "Step 2, he continued, eyes still on his computer screen. "We'll file an identity theft report with all 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. We'll request a freeze on any loan applications under your name for the next 90 days. He paused and looked at me. "Do you have any photographic evidence? Screenshots, surveillance footage, anything?" I shook my head. "I only saw it with my own eyes last night. But I remember every file he opened, every website, even the name of the USB he used. If necessary, I can write a detailed statement." "Do it," he said. "By the end of the day, I'll file a report with the police classifying this as a major financial fraud case." The crushing weight in my chest finally began to ease. I sat down and wrote out everything, from the first cup of tea to the moment I stood frozen outside the office door. Elliot continued making calls, sending emails, and processing documents with the precision of someone used to handling emergencies. By around 3 p.m., the essential steps were complete. I had frozen all my accounts, updated passwords using a new manager Monica had installed for me, and transferred all original documents to a secure location Elliot had arranged. "From this point on, you're not going back to that apartment alone," he said, leaning back in his chair. "It's best to stay with someone you trust until we have full legal control over the situation. I'm staying at Monica's tonight." His expression eased as he gave a small, approving glance. "Good. Don't let your emotions get in the way. You're doing the right thing." That night, sitting on Monica's small sofa, hugging a soft pillow to my chest, I felt truly safe for the first time in months. Brandon may have been clever, he may have planned every step carefully, but he made one critical miscalculation. I wasn't the same woman he used to manipulate. That evening, while folding laundry in Monica's living room, my phone rang. His name lit up the screen, Brandon. I wasn't surprised. I had been expecting this call all day. My chest tightened as I picked up. Hello? I barely recognized my own voice. Kat? His voice was frantic, shaken. Where are you? I've been calling you all day. Where did you go this morning? What happened? I let the silence stretch. I wanted to see how far he'd go, playing the concerned husband. You left without a word, Brandon continued, more urgent. I woke up, the bed was empty, your phone was off. I'm really worried about you, you know? I gave a dry laugh. Really, Brandon? Worried? Maybe save that concern for the bank accounts I just froze, or the USB drive you tucked into your leather bag last night. Silence. Then a sharp exhale. Kat, I don't know what you're talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about, I said coldly. I saw everything. You accessed my laptop, you copied personal documents, passport photos, bank info, even the deed to the apartment. You were applying for a loan in my name, weren't you? For a so-called investment property in Austin? He went silent. I kept going, each word like a blade. Stop pretending, I saw it with my own eyes. And don't forget, I also know about what you've been slipping into my tea every night. I didn't drink it. I pretended. You tried to turn me into a walking corpse, knocking me out while you quietly erased me from my own life. Kat, his voice trembled. I know you're imagining things. We're just going through a rough patch. You're overreacting. Overreacting? I leveled my voice. Let me be clear. You know what's an overreaction? Drugging your wife, stealing her identity, ruining the credit, assets, and life of someone who trusted you completely. You don't understand. I'm in financial trouble. I didn't mean to hurt you. I let out a bitter chuckle. Financial trouble? So you filled out a $75,000 loan application under my name, submitted scanned IDs, bank statements, and how exactly do you plan to explain the building's security footage that probably recorded you leaving in the middle of the night with my file folder? Brandon said nothing. I continued, firm and clear. I've hired an attorney, I've reported identity theft, all my accounts are protected, and I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. Kat, please. His voice cracked. We can fix this. Don't do this to us. I sat down slowly, keeping my tone steady. No, Brandon. I'm taking back what's mine. Please, he was nearly begging. We can start over. I'll tell you everything. Whatever you want to know, I'll come clean. I don't need a confession, I cut in gently but with cold precision. I need freedom and the truth, neither of which you ever intended to give me. I hung up. My hands still gripped the phone, but this time it wasn't trembling. Monica stepped out from the kitchen, her eyes worried. You okay? You know what? I haven't felt this clear in a long time. The next morning, I arrived at Elliot's office earlier than scheduled. I hadn't been waiting in the lobby for more than 10 minutes when Elliot opened the door, holding a thick stack of documents neatly clipped in a black leather folder. His expression was more serious than usual, and as the door to the conference room shut behind me, I sensed what I was about to hear wasn't just legal. You should brace yourself, Elliot said slowly. I had a cybersecurity contact retrieve login and message history from the secondary account Brandon accessed on your device. What we found may be hard to digest. I clenched my hands, trying to steady my voice. What did you find? Elliot opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. A list of emails appeared on the screen with blunt subject lines. RE. Total wipe plan. Update on Catherine's accounts. Next month's trip. The sender, sarah.v@blueriseholdings.com. Her real name is Vanessa Cruz, Elliot said, a former colleague of Brandon's from his old firm in Houston. Their messages started increasing about 6 months ago. It began as work, but then turned into something much more intimate. I scrolled through the emails. It wasn't just about money. I can't stand it anymore, Brandon. When are we finally getting rid of that idiot? Just a little more patience, babe. The loan documents are nearly done. Next month, just book the flight. I'll handle the rest. The Scottsdale apartment's already picked. Elliot scrolled faster. I saw an attached image. A photo of a real estate purchase agreement, with Vanessa Cruz as the buyer and Brandon Stone as the financial sponsor. The words blurred. My throat burned. Kat's almost gone. After tea, she crashes hard every night. You wouldn't believe how hard it is pretending to be a loving husband. It felt like being punched in the chest. I had my suspicions, but I never imagined he'd reduce me to a tool. A disposable asset. Just that idiot. Elliot's voice softened, as if afraid to break me. They planned to drain every asset under your name, apartment, savings, retirement stocks, and then vanish together, possibly overseas. She even sent sample car photos and apartment interiors she wanted. He showed me an image, a white convertible parked outside a penthouse overlooking sand dunes. Below it, an email from Vanessa. Think this suits me? I couldn't move, my whole body locked in place. There was a time I thought I could forgive my husband for making desperate financial decisions. But not this. Not betrayal by design. Not a con, scripted to the last detail. Brandon hadn't just tried to steal my money. He had tried to erase me. Click by click, sip by sip, every good night laced with chemicals that put me out cold. I asked, my voice hoarse. Can we use these emails to press charges? Absolutely, Elliot gave a firm response. I've backed up everything and sent a copy to the State Financial Crimes Division, but you'll need to stay strong. This won't be simple. He'll try to reach out, plead, even blame you. But what matters is, you have the truth now. That night, I sat alone in Monica's living room, opened my laptop, and reread every email. I needed to know every word he said behind my back, every plan, every promise he made to another woman. Because starting tomorrow, I would be the one ending the show he had scripted all along. I filed for divorce on a quiet Monday morning. No courtroom, no scene. Just a single signature, quietly closing a chapter that nearly erased me. That afternoon I returned to work. As I walked through the doors of the office I knew so well, I caught glances, surprise mixed with hesitation. But I didn't care. I hadn't come back to explain. I came back because I never agreed to stay down. Mr. Larson, my department head, paused what he was doing when he saw me. Catherine, I thought you'd be taking more time off, he said, half surprised, half relieved. I need to rebuild from the ground up, I replied. And this is the best place to start. I resumed my role like I'd never left, cleaning up overdue reports, taking on the projects others avoided. The spreadsheets, the data, once exhausting when I lived with Brandon, became grounding again. They gave me shape, order. I began to find my rhythm. A few weeks later, I was invited to a private meeting with upper management. They asked me to lead a strategic team at our new Seattle branch. When I heard it, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something deeper, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I believed in myself again. I decided to move. The old apartment went up for sale, along with all the distorted memories inside it. I chose a small home near Lake Oswego, where I didn't need an alarm to wake up, and the breeze through the windows was enough to begin a peaceful day. Monica stayed by my side as if the storm had never passed through. She encouraged me to revisit painting, a passion I'd left behind in college. At first, I just painted to release, but the more I painted, the more I felt like I was stitching together the parts of me that words could never touch. In the fall, I left the country. I wandered through Paris, Florence, then Vienna, finally resting in Lisbon. I walked slowly through galleries, lingered at old cafes, and sometimes quietly sketched what stirred my heart. Not for anyone, not for any reason, just because I wanted to live like that, deep enough to feel, slow enough to know, I was still alive. In Lisbon, I reconnected with Emily, an old college friend. She's now a freelance photographer. We stayed up late, sharing the moments that broke us. I wasn't the only one who had trusted the wrong person. But what set me apart was, I chose to rise. When I returned to Portland, I brought back a few notebooks, unfinished canvases, and a draft proposal for a personal art exhibit I'd never dared to dream of before. One March afternoon, I was walking past the new shopping district downtown. I paused in front of an eyewear store. Inside stood Brandon. He was hunched over, clutching a file. Hair unkempt, shirt wrinkled, eyes empty. There was something in that look that made me stop. the face of a man who once thought he controlled everything, now reduced to a worn shell clinging to nothing. He looked up, our eyes met for a few seconds. Then I turned. I tossed my scarf gently over my shoulder and walked past him like a stranger. The streetlights ahead glowed brightly. In real life, not everyone sees the warning signs in relationships that seem perfect on the surface. Catherine's story reminds us that blind trust can lead us to the edge of danger, and sometimes, the one who betrays us is the same person who held our hand each night. But from that, Catherine also shows us the power of clarity, timely action, and choosing ourselves over continued sacrifice. Freedom, in the end, doesn't come from forgiveness. It comes from the courage to begin again. What are your thoughts on Catherine's journey and how she faced betrayal? Share your reflections in the comments below and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful and emotional stories about life and family.